Welcome again. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the Virginia Humanities, which is the producer of Virginia Festival of the Book, to the JMRL Same Page Community Read event, A Conversation with Ross Gay. I am Catherine Fay with the JMRL Library, and we thank all of you for coming out today. We're very excited. And we thank our partner, Virginia Festival of the Book, our author, Ross Gay, our moderator, Erin Donovan, for making time to share this conversation on Delight. And we also offer great thanks to the Friends of the Jefferson Madison Regional Library, our sponsors, and the Piedmont Master Gardeners for helping to put on this event today. We have a few housekeeping bits. Just remember to turn off your cell phones. And please support festival programming with a donation by visiting vabook.org. Your support ensures that we may sustain the festival for many more years. There will be book sales in the Carver Center after the event, and Ross Gay will be available for signing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kalela, who will introduce our author, Ross Gay, and our moderator, Erin Donovan. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Inciting Joy was released by Algonquin in October of 2022. And again, Ross Gay is he's a gardener. He's a proponent of joy and of love and all the things that we need. I also want to introduce my colleague, Erin Donovan, who I'm just especially delighted to. She is a big Ross Gay fan, a big poetry fan, and a writer of poetry herself. Erin Donovan, let's read her bio, Assistant Director of the Virginia Center for the Book, where she supports the Virginia Festival of the Book and Book Arts, and she works with a variety of New Orleans nonprofits. She holds an MFA rewriting in Italian. That's just her standard bio, but I just want to say Erin is one of the reasons, one of the huge reasons why Ross is here, and she is, I just cannot thank her enough. These are words on paper, but I just cannot thank her enough, and I'm so excited to see her and Ross Gay in conversation. So,
Oh no, we have Miss Rita Dove in the first row.
Hello. Good to see you.
Gosh, do you want to start us off with the reading?
Yeah. But first of all, there are redbud branches on here, which is great. One, because you can eat them, the blooms. They're floral. They're delicious. You probably couldn't make a whole salad. Well, you could. It'd take a lot of flowers. And two, because, my editor, I have a great editor, and one of the things that she does is point out when I'm doing stuff all the time, and one of the things that she would always point out is like, enough of the goddamn redbuds, Never enough, evidently. I'm going to read just briefly, and then maybe like 3 delights, maybe 2 from the book. And these flowers, too, are amazing. These are so incredible.
They're blocking Aaron's face, and we've got some complaints.
Yeah. So I'll read 2 from this, and then I have another book of delights coming out. So I'm just going to read one of those, partly because of the little conversation I had in the back room with Catherine. It seemed right. So this first one is called, what's it called? It's called, there it is, The High Five from Strangers. Today I was wandering the square of the small Indiana town where I gave a poetry reading at the local college, a feature of the small town Midwest, a city hallish building in the center, always with some sad statue trumpeting one war or another. This one had a guy in one of those not very protective-looking hats they called a helmet during World War I. He's carrying, can I tell you something? I was just in Santa Cruz. With a beloved, and he was driving me around and was like, every time we passed a statue without a gun, he was like, statue without a gun, statue without a gun. So good. This one had a guy in one of those not very protective looking hats they called a helmet during World War I. He's carrying, naturally, a gun. Jenna Osman's book, Public Figures, alerted me to the ubiquity of the gun, the weapon, in the hands of our statues. A delight I wish to now imagine and even impose, given that beneficent dictatorship, of one's own life anyway, is a delight. All new statues must have in their hands flowers, or shovels, or babies, or seedlings, or chinchillas. We could go on like this for a while. But never again, never ever guns. I decree it, and I also decree the removal of the already extant guns, that the emptiness our war heroes carry be the metaphor for a while. As I was finishing circling the square, I passed a storefront garage with huge Make America Great Again signs. It was a foreign auto repair shop, and inside were mostly Toyotas and Hondas. I settled into the coffee shop, where it seemed every other black person in this town was, every one of us offering to each other some discreet version of the greeting, and took my notebooks out, and I was reading over these delights, transcribing them into my computer. And while I was working, headphones on, swaying to the new De La Soul record, Delight, which deserves its own entry, I noticed a white girl, she looked 15, but could have been, I suppose, a college student, standing next to me with her hand raised. I looked up, confused, and pulled my headphones back, and she said, like a coach or something, "Working on your paper? Good job to you, high five!" And you better believe I high-fived that child in her pre-ripped Def Leppard shirt and her itty-bitty Doc Martens. For I delight in unequivocally pleasant public physical interactions with strangers. What constitutes pleasant, it's no secret, is informed by my large-ish male and cisgender body, a body that is also large-ish male, cisgender, and not white. In other words, the pleasant, the delightful are not universal. We should all understand this by now. A few months ago, walking down the street in Umbertide in Italy, a trash truck pulled up beside me and the guy in the passenger seat yelled something I didn't understand. I said, "Como?" The Spanish word for come again, which is a ridiculous thing to say because even if he had come again, I would not have understood him. He knew this, and hopping out of the truck to dump in a couple cans, he flexed his muscles, pointed at me, and then smacked my biceps hard. Twice. I loved him. Or when a waitress puts her hand on my shoulder, forget if she calls me honey, baby even better. Or someone scooting by puts their hand on my back, the handshake, the hug, I love them both. Once I was getting on a plane and shuffling down the aisle, I saw, sitting at the front of coach, reading a magazine, my great Uncle Earl. I got down on my knees and I put my hand on his forearm and I said, "Uncle Earl, it's me, Ross." He looked at me kind of quizzically, as did the woman traveling with him who did not look one bit like my Aunt Sylvia, which made me look back at my not Uncle Earl, who looked maybe like my Uncle Earl's second cousin about 20 years ago. And though it was benign and no one was hurt, It was a little weird. And they looked confused. All the same, given his Uncle Earl died about 6 months later, I'm delighted I got to see him and touch him gently, lovingly, about 1,000 miles away. This one's called Tomato on Board. I have this long essay, not long, I have an essay in that Joy book, and I tell this story in the essay where I was asked to give a reading, read a poem, or read a something at this big fundraiser in Bloomington. It's called the Soup Bowl, and it's like one of the biggest fundraiser for like the food pantry we have in town. And I got it in my head, I had this little essay, and it was all about my dad, really. It was about my dad, how he could I was sort of saying he was like a maker of metaphors in a way, because when we were little, he told us that the button on the car that made the windshield wiper come out, fluid come out, if we pushed it, it would turn to a flower. And a bee would come and sting us, so don't do it. So the whole essay is really about that, but for some reason, in getting there, I say fuck Steve Jobs like 20 times. And at the end of this little digression, which you're in the middle of right now, a digression, I lean over to my partner and I'm like, after the reading, which was, they hated it, I got back to the table and I'm walking through these people and they're just like giving me, and it's the biggest reading I ever gave. There's a lot of people. And I get back to the table and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have read the one about the tomato on the airplane. That's what I'm reading to you right now, just so it works out. What you don't know until you carry a tomato seedling through the airport and onto a plane is that carrying a tomato seedling through the airport and onto a plane will make people smile at you almost like you're carrying a baby, a quiet baby. I did not know this until today, carrying my little tomato, about 3 or 4 inches high in its 4-inch plastic starter pot, which my friend Michael gave to me, smirking about how I was going to get it home. Something about this at first felt naughty. Not comparing a tomato to a baby, but carrying the tomato onto the plane. And so I slid the thing into my bag while going through security, which made them pull the bag for inspection. When the security guy saw it was a tomato, he smiled and said, I don't know how to check that. Have a nice day. But I quickly realized that one of its stems, which I almost wrote as arms, was broken from the jostling, and it only had 4 of them, so I decided I'd better just carry it out in the open. And the shower of love began. It was a shower of love I also felt while carrying a bouquet of lilies through the streets of Rome last summer. People, maybe women especially, maybe women my age-ish and older especially, smiling with approval. A woman in a house dress beating out a rug on a balcony shouted, "Bravo!" An older couple holding hands both smiled at me and pulled into each other, knitting their fingers together. My showerers might have been disappointed to know I was not giving the lilies to a sweetheart, but to my friends Damiano and Moira, who had translated a couple of my poems into Italian and were so kind as to let me stay at their place a few nights while I was passing through. On the way to the vegetarian restaurant Damiano's ex-wife owns with her partner, we walked by what I'm pretty sure he said was the biggest redbud tree in the world. It stretched for yards, lounging periodically onto the mossy earth. Its beautiful black bark glistened by the streetlights. Though translation is an act of love, so my showerers needn't be disappointed at all. Before boarding the final leg of my flight, one of the workers said, "Nice tomato," which I don't think was a come-on. And the flight attendant asked about the tomato at least 5 times, not an exaggeration, every time calling it my tomato. "Where's my tomato? How's my tomato? You didn't lose my tomato, did you?" She even directed me to an open seat in the exit row. "Why don't you guys go sit there and stretch out?" I gathered my things and set the little guy in the window seat so she could look out. When I got my water, I poured some into the little guy's soil. When we got bumpy, I put my hand on the little guy's container, careful not to snap another arm off. And when we landed and the pilot put the brakes on hard, my arm reflexively went across the seat, holding the little guy in place, the way my dad's arm would when he had to brake hard in that car without seatbelts to speak of, and one of my very favorite gestures in the Encyclopedia of Human Gestures. And I'm just gonna read this last one. I have not had the opportunity to read these out loud that much, so I'm excited to do that. This is called The Minor Cordiality. There is a species of human I so adore, I felt, as I drove by an old farmhouse on the corner of the bottom of a big hill. And the species of human in this case was in the shape of a big, burly fella in overalls with long, stringy hair and a bountiful beard, who, leaning forward on his rocking chair, tossed a wave at me in the shape of a peace sign, along with a little butterfly of a smile. It might be this minor cordiality, waving from the porch at, I'm presuming, whomever goes by. I'm telling you, the ease and skill with which he dispatched his wares made me feel like it was his vocation, his calling. So warms my heart today, in part because just a few days ago, not 100 yards away on this very road, heading to the same place, I passed someone who seemed like a volunteer fireman. Pickup truck with the magnet light on top flashing meant I would learn to dissuade anyone from continuing, though since he was parked on the side of the road, I thought it meant caution, not stop. I kept going until I heard him start yelling, and I saw him in my rearview mirror waving me back. And when I got back to him, he leaned into my window, his Kids R Us badge dangling from his lanyard, and he asked me, sort of excited, imitating the questions cops love to ask when they pull you over, where I was going in such a hurry. By the fourth time he asked, smiling now as he was, titillated, it seemed, at this meager scrap of power. Though I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would not have been surprised if he had an erection. I should have said, it's going to get grown. We got grown. A chubby, at least. Where are you going in such a hurry? Which seemed irrelevant to his duty of alerting people to the accident ahead and that we'd have to go another way. I do not have to tell you, and I'm not the first one to say so, but a badge will fuck you up. Whether it's this guy's plastic one or someone else's aluminum one, or the color of our skin or our testicles or how much money we make or the language we speak or our citizen to a given, this country, our badges fuck us up royally. I don't care who we think we are. Hashtag unbadge. Anyhow, after I grumbled, I'm going to the supermarket, and I was more reticent to that. I'm going to the supermarket. I spent the next 2 hours fantasizing that I'd said, none of your goddamn business, or fuck off, or eat me, or your mamas. And because I didn't say any of those things, I was stuck also fantasizing about mauling this dude, who, from this angle, looked to me like the second-string center on my 1990 JV football team, yanking his badge from his milky neck, slinging him to the ground, stomping him a little bit. I don't actually know if you can stomp a little bit. And as he's crawling away, like a cherry on top, out of a Cormac McCarthy novel or something, asking him where he's going so fast. Friends, here's the thing. I've spent a good while, not inordinate, but far more than the allotted 30 minutes in which I tried to corral these thoughts. First draft, yes. Trying to get my head around this not quite blow-offable rage. So fully formed, so embodied, that it seems to come from the long memory. Epigenetics seems again the right word, of badged motherfuckers telling my folks where they can be and where they can't, what they can do and what they can't. This neighborhood, this pool, this sidewalk, this restaurant, this water fountain, this college, this church, this movie theater, this basketball court, this job, this stage, this panel, this hospital, this relationship, this land, this life. All of which seems useful rage to contemplate, critical rage I've heard it called, though needful rage I might say too, particularly as it helps us imagine abolishing the conditions by which the rage came to pass, rather than taking ownership of the conditions and inflicting them on someone else. Particularly if the rage does not become the ground of our gathering and our imagining and our dreaming, as it has threatened to do here. If the rage is not its own objective, by which I mean if the rage is a bridge to love. There is a reason an alternative title for this book is the Book of Despites. In addition to the porch wavers and their ilk, the hat tippers, the head nodders, the thumbs uppers and fist pumpers, are whoever makes it their business, often, but by no means only, people working in diners, post offices, laundromats, cafes, supermarkets, bookstores, bakeries, train stations, etc., to call us baby, or babe, or honey, or love. There are angels in this world who call people they don't know love. Some of them, and this makes my heart a hot air balloon, a zeppelin, a flock of giraffes, a gaggle of manatees, 1,000 bright kites cackling in the sky, are like 20 years old. Sugar sometimes too, people say. Along with pal or cousin or brother or young blood, or here in Indiana, and this I had to check wasn't fighting words, for I'm really not from here, bub. Bub means pal. It means friend. Or what's good, which might be one of the subtitles of this Book of Despites. And who, in the busy cafe or bakery or Vietnamese joint or pizzeria or library, seeing you seen there's no more seats, invites you to sit at their table simply by pointing or moving their stuff or pushing the chair out with their foot, and probably smiling. Who smiles at you, and who lets you merge when you're driving, and who holds the door at the elevator, who asks, could you use this? And who stays put when they see you're not well, and who drops off homemade bread, injera, a pie, or cookies, who drops off serviceberry jam, or fig jam, or hot sauce, and who drops off soup, and who drops off a book, or some seeds, and who stops when you blow a tire, or the radiator's shot, and who gives directions when you ask, and who walks you there.
Y'all, the delight of just sitting right here and having that reading and getting to be a proxy for all of y'all speaking with Ross is a delight for me. So I'm interested by this Book of Despites. I think there's in Inciting Joy, there are a couple passages where you talk about the idea that joy and grief or joy and sorrow aren't separate. And there are definitely kernels of that we can see even in the Book of Delights. Yeah. One that really resonated with me was the drinking kombucha from a mid-century glass, which is just such a clear, distinct sensory experience, and yet it's also calling forth the current political moment, economic hardship, your own family history, and that's all kind of coexisting and informing this one moment. So there's a delight, but it is imbued with a great deal else. So I was wondering if you could say a little bit about the complicated relationship of joy and delight and grief and,
Yeah, totally.
all of it.
Totally. I mean, one of the things, so that this book, that my most recent book is called Inciting Joy, and, it's fun because you write a book and then you realize after you've written the book that you now know how to say the thing that you were writing the book to learn how to say. So I think that book is really, and I sort of offer a definition of joy in the book, and the definition is something like what emanates from us when we help each other carry our sorrows. And I think that's true. But as I've been thinking about it more, I think it's something like actually that feeling or what we fall into or what becomes available to us or something, what we, I was going to say enter into, but inhabit or inherit too feels nice. When we practice our entanglement, when we practice belonging to one another, which comes in all kinds of ways and is obviously not clear, not just perfectly clear. But part of that, to me, it seems like a premise, a baseline of that is sorrow. It is sorrow, And it seems to me that we're inclined to sort of tend to one another, maybe more, or try to figure that out, when we do recognize that sorrow is among the grounds of our existence. When we do recognize that walking down the street, we've only talked a little bit, but I'm just going to take a guess that you're heartbroken. Mm-hmm. I'm going to guess, you don't have to tell me about it, Mm-hmm. But I believe it to be true. Mm-hmm. And I'm that feels that feels important to me, as a practice, to sort of practice that as a kind of understanding. But also that understanding itself might encourage us to, reach toward one another in such a way that we become actually more available to delight, so that we become more capable, more able to like see when the red buds are blooming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've had an immense outpouring of interest in your book, in your visit.
Can you hold your thought? Because I realize
Yes,
I got to. And it also like, no, yeah. It also like the thing is that it feels really important not to diminish the heartbreak. It feels very important not to diminish.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like part of what your question was asking, and I want to sort of say that the questions that these books are raising are I'm not at all interested because I think it's like a childish endeavor to imagine a life free of heartbreak, free of pain. And I also feel like there's kind of like a lot of horror that can kind of come with that dream, the dream of a life free of need, actually. That's a kind of, you might say that's a kind of dream of that's like a capitalistic apex, to be free of need, which just means to externalize your need on all these people and the land and everything else.
Right.
So but I just did want to sort of come back to that book of despites, because it feels like very much the facts of our lives is that, our bodies will change, who we love will die, we will die, all of these things. Despite which, and in the midst of which, and practicing in the midst of which, maybe we're more inclined to, like I said, share our shit, et cetera.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I just want to, can I just sit with that for a minute? Yeah. It's a both and.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Which is something that is obviously very compelling for a lot of folks. And it seems to be something that a lot of people have a great deal of interest in hearing about. So what is this need that we all have and that we have come here together to investigate, to find delight and to find joy?
I suspect there's a lot of things. I suspect there is a lot of like sort of, you might have heard it too, like a kind of almost an imperative to be suspicious of one another.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like the profoundly alienated lives we live so often, and that there's a kind of encouragement. I heard about this thing, I could tell you. There's a thing called Palm Pay. Have you ever heard of this? Yeah. I just heard about this. Don't do it. Don't fucking do it. It's like you put your palm on a thing and you can pay your bills by putting your palm over a light. Like that's like normal life. I know. But so to sort of talk about this sort of alienation.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I want to be like, hey, have you heard there's a thing called a redbud tree? There's a thing called seeds. Someone just gave me a packet of seeds. These are Baker Creek chocolate cherry sunflowers. They grow tall. They'll be beautiful. They give a smell. The bees will pollinate them. That's actually called life, And I feel like there's a lot of fake life going on, unlife or something. And I feel like that, it does many things. It makes us sad. It makes us afraid of one another. It makes us afraid of the risk of getting close to one another.
Yeah.
It makes kids want to kill themselves. It seems to me, I've heard, So anyway, I don't know if you thought we were going to go there, but we did.
I mean, we're in the midst of it, right?
We're in the midst. We're in the midst of it.
Yeah. I think that's another thing that strikes me about your work is that the body is very much present in all of its like awkward, stinky, cumbersomeness, which I think also helps root us in the life.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that feels like it too. Like that. So many things that we pretend we don't have, like a body.
A body.
And not only a body that is on its way to becoming something else every day,
Yeah.
but something like really different than this.
Yeah.
That's something that, won't wake up in the morning. That's interesting to me. That's among the most interesting things about us, to me,
Yeah. The passingness of us.
Yeah, that we change.
Yeah.
And that we might grant each other the grace to change
Yeah.
because we change.
Yeah.
The evidence is in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think your work also encourage us to reach out and find that community with other folks, to connect with other people, be it through a garden, be it on the basketball court, in poetry readings,
Yeah.
and just embrace the passingness and the singularity, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering too about these very large abstract nouns that you bring to us of gratitude and joy and delight. And whether this is maybe a Merriam-Webster type question, but whether it's worth parsing out, how do we distinguish between them?
Yeah.
Is it important to?
I know. I think that sometimes, and I think I kind of have a little bit of an idea. I'll try it out.
All right.
I feel like delight is occasional. And I feel like, like someone gives you someone just gave me fig jam. It's a delight. It's occasional. A deep delight, that I tasted already. It's incredible. And et cetera, but it's a sort of an occasional thing. I'm kind of under the impression that joy is like not occasional. It's just there, and you can go into it. I kind of feel like that, and gratitude feels like this interesting thing, and I kind of, I don't know if I exactly have the word. Obviously, I don't exactly have the words for anything, but I don't know if I exactly have the words for the gratitude thing. But somehow, gratitude and joy to me feel very overlapping. They feel very overlapping. Let me try one more thing. Delight, I was recently thinking, delight is like the glimmers of evidence of our connection. That someone thought to put redbud branches on the stage. I'm guessing because I say redbud too many times in my book, is evidence of connection. It delights me. And I wonder if something like the joy of it is the kind of depth of that. When we get into the depth of that happened in the midst of a group of people who will never altogether be in the same room again. And that happened in the midst of, et cetera, and that my mother's 82 years old, and that this and that, and that, all of our hearts are doing all these crazy things, and da da da. So that's sort of like one of the ways that I think about it sometimes. Long way of saying, not exactly, I don't know.
And so the catalog of unabashed gratitudes, we have these expansive poems. Delight, in the Book of Delights, we have these vignettes or these essayettes, and then we have Inciting Joy with these kind of longer, more developed essays.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how you make the decision as a poet, as a prose writer, to kind of translate between those two genres.
For now, this is what I think. I think I move toward poems when the thing that I do not know is more unknown than when I'm going with essays. And I'm not positive that that's right, but there is something about like a depth of mystery that poems want to contain or want me to reach toward that depth with them. And I wonder if it's because I say this a lot, and sometimes, you know, when I say it enough times, I'm like, is that bullshit? But I wonder if it's like, because poems think so hard with music, you know. They think so hard with the line, which is the breath, you know, and they think so hard with music that they have a kind of logic that might be, or a kind of, the way that they think might be able to sort of reach toward or contain things that are inexpressible in the sentence, you know. I'm not sure about that, but I do, yeah, I don't, at the same time, like, I feel like how I learned to be a writer was by writing poems, and how I write poems comes very much into my essays, you know. Like, I think a lot about the sounds of the sentences, and I think a lot about syntax, but I don't have the line to play with.
Yeah.
And it's infrequent that I will let the music carry a thing absent a kind of, like, quote unquote, you know, let the music be the meaning for, like, you know, as long as I might in a poem. Yeah.
I guess I think it feels to me like there is something, there is definitely for me a correlation between your poetry and your prose, and that your prose, there are all these addendums,
Yeah,
asides. You
yeah.
can really feel kind of the mind working,
Yeah.
and an invitation to the reader to kind of work through a thought with
Yeah.
you, which for me feels very much like poetry. Like, we're moving towards something, I'm being pulled, I'm being asked to reconsider something.
Yeah.
And now suddenly here I am,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, finding myself somewhere unexpected.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Um,
And the list. I mean, there's so
yes.
many lists. I read that audiobook, whatever, like 8 months ago, and I came out of it like, golly, I have a lot of lists. Which is like you know, you mentioned Whitman earlier, and I mentioned Gerald Stern, and it's like lists, you know. That's like that's a poemy thing, you know.
Yeah.
Not only poemy,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, here are the many things that I am considering.
yeah.
They are related.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see.
Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always curious about what other writers' writing practices are like. Do you have any particular rituals or habits that you get into to, you know, get in that spot?
I care about pens and notebooks. I feel like that's maybe the way I do it. Yeah, like I really care about pens and notebooks.
Yeah.
I have. It's a little bit. I give them a lot of power. Yeah, I love them. You know, someone handed me a Le Pen. I was a Le Pen person for a long time, and then I just got onto these other Muji pens, which are great. And then someone had a Le Pen, and I wrote on the Le Pen. I was like, oh my God, I love this pen. This pen's gonna make me brilliant. And the notebook's the same. You know, like that's the tack or whatever tooth of the paper is like. It's a thing with me, you know. I love it. I'm trying to find it. At the same time, you know, like I'm happy to write a poem on an envelope, but I do spend a lot of time like feeling the notebooks in the paper store. Yeah, yeah. I wrote my whole this last book of delights. I'm very proud of this. In grade books that I stole from where I work.
Nice.
You know, because I don't use them for anything else. So. So why not? Let's put delights in there.
Yes, yes, yes. A stolen delight.
Yeah.
A stolen delight. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've heard over and over in my conversations with folks about your book and about your visit is that reading Book of Delights, reading Inciting Joy has kind of inspired in them either a return to their own kind of documentation of gratitude and delights, or the beginning of a new practice. So do you have any advice or suggestions for folks who are trying to kind of tune in to that in their own lives?
Not really. I'm always shy about advice, but usually I don't. But now that, as you started saying that, I thought, oh yeah, I actually do. And it's kind of like, part of it's so fun to tell someone else. you know?
Yeah.
Like when you're like, I was walking down the street and like,
Yeah.
someone had 3 jars of fig jam, and they were like,
Yeah.
yo, I got too much fig jam. You want one? That is fun when it happens, but it's
Yeah.
almost as fun because then the person's like, what? What were they wearing?
Yeah. Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And then you have this whole thing.
Yeah.
I feel like, I wonder like that. You know, and people, the other thing is that this is a crazy benefit of this job that I somehow got a hold of, is that people shyly often want to tell me what delighted them. That doesn't ruin your day for the most part.
Right. Right.
You know? That's like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
What were they wearing? You know?
Yeah. What were they wearing?
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's a very lucky thing. So anyway, yeah, it does feel like so much of the spirit of it is a little bit like, yo, I got to tell
Yeah.
you this thing. I got to
Yeah.
tell you this thing. You know? Like me and my friend El Renee, we were talking yesterday, about just like some of her research and stuff, and it was like, it felt like that kind of thing of like, you got to hear this. And I was like, are you, what? And that in a way is like, it's not too much to say maybe that it's a little bit like why it feels nice sometimes to be alive, you know?
Yeah.
Because someone told you what they loved, you know?
Yeah. They shared.
And they listened to you say what
yes.
you love.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you
And
shared
they
it.
asked.
And
Yeah,
they,
you shared.
Yeah.
You shared it. You
Yeah.
shared what you love.
Yeah. Which is its own delight, that
Totally.
sharing.
Yeah.
We are going to open this out for questions from the audience shortly. I'm sure that we have a lot of folks who might not even have questions, but their own delights to share. But I wanted to ask also, who are your mentors in joy? Who do you look to, or what do you look for to guide you towards delight?
I mean, I think I had a lot of books that I read, you know, that I could talk about. Does feel nice to talk about Gerald Stern, my beloved, you know, our friend, and, you know, teacher, kind of my main teacher and mentor. And there is a way, like when I go back and read his work, and I, first of all, see, my poems and my essays actually are directly out of his work. I mean, it's so obvious. Sometimes it's so obvious, like when he was alive, he died recently. I would like read him something and be like, yo, just to be like, I really stole this, you know? And it's so beautiful to me, that kind of depth of without you, I don't know what kind of thing. He has a book called Stealing History. It's all these like short essays, kind of daily. 2 years later, I write this thing called the Book of Delights, kind of daily, short essays, you know. Also, the mode of thought that his take is like, you know. Anyway, so how lucky to bring him in the room, but also just to say, as a kind of mentor in his work too, he's able to, you know, so often hold the kind of devastation with the impossibly beautiful. It's just like, feels grown in that way, you know? I also sort of feel like my mom. Just the older I get, the more I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like she, you know, is many, many things, and is, you know, I've gotten to watch her I'm 48. I've gotten to, you know, watch her for a long time, change and all these things. But it's sort of like, oh yeah, you know, she too is a kind of mentor of many things, but of joy, you know.
Yeah.
I could probably go on for a while. Yeah.
Well, before we turn back out to the audience, would you, so we have not only does the Center for the Book put on the Festival of the Book, but we also have a Book Arts Center who have created a beautiful broadside of a passage from Inciting Joy. So I would love it if you could read sort of a chunk around that for us.
Yeah, totally. So this is an essay. It's called, what's it called? We Kin. And it ends because we're like driving to a family reunion, and my dad is driving, and this guy kind of pulls up in a pickup truck, and they're looking at each other, and then they're like, "Yeah, we can." And it was as happy in a way as I've ever seen my father, who I'd seen happy plenty. So maybe I'll read just 2 pages of this so we can do it. Yeah. Oh, maybe I'll read 3 pages. So I'm sort of talking about the incredibleness of a seed, that seeds inside of seeds carry like all of this information, all of this nourishment, all of this bounty, all of this gathering inside of them. And I talk about this table. This collard seed makes so much that there's a table not big enough for all the people it can feed. And that table is built by, lest we forget, whoever decided a given plant was worth keeping. Taste, hardiness, tradition, beauty, love, and so saved the seed and brought them to us, which the best catalogs do a good job of explaining. Just the other day, my mother told me her mom always grew a hardy pinto-type bean they called a Dutch bean that her grandmother had always grown. Though my mother made a face that I'm pretty sure meant she didn't love it, my granny obviously did, and it fed my mother all the same. I suspect my great-grandmother Biggie, when she fled Port Gibson, Mississippi for Youngstown, Ohio in 1913, brought with her some seeds with which to create the garden she fed everyone from. People saved these seeds because they loved these seeds, and they thought we might love them too, despite, and it's crucial we remember this, those people sometimes having just barely survived a drought or a famine or being rounded up on a forced march or put into the hold of a ship to hell. Whoever saved the seed loved us before they knew us, and some of them loved us as their world was ending. Our gardens archived that love. All of which is why I bristle at the idea of gardening as an act of self-sufficiency or independence. I get the premise. For instance, gardening makes us less reliant on an industrial food system that is brutal in 1,000 ways. Growing what you can't buy is awesome. Knowing where your food comes from and how it's grown is lovely. Sticking it to Walmart is fun, etc. But a garden, a healthy garden anyway, footnote. Okay, I keep saying this, healthy garden. I know. By a healthy garden, I mean a garden that, rather than being managed like a war zone, poisoned with herbicides and insecticides with an eye to murder whoever and whatever might trespass, is an entangled system of truly countless mutual contributors and beneficiaries, of which the gardener is but one. But a garden, a healthy garden anyway, shows us no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you earn or stash or hoard or bunker up, no matter even your fleet of spaceships, you will never be self-sufficient or independent, because nothing living is. Neither sycamore nor kelp, nor bacteria, nor bald eagle, nor coral, nor dandelion, nor orca, nor mosquito, nor leopard, nor chestnut, nor squash vine borer, nor deer tick, nor billionaire, nor leech, nor cobra, nor algae, nor morel, nor kudzu, nor tree frog, nor ficus, nor moose, nor multiflora rose, nor orangutan, nor palm tree, nor mason bee, nor you, nor me. In fact, in addition to the fact that we all die, the most salient or unifying feature of we, the living, is that we cannot survive without help. Even the most prepped and rugged survivalist, though perhaps in his mind prepared to go it free of human help, aside from his rifle and his shoes and often his Sherpa and probably a few other things made of or by poorly paid people, will not make it very far without the fish and deer and berries and wild greens and firewood and everything that made these possible. As the writers and ecological stewards Vandana Shiva and Robin Wall Kimmerer teach us, to be among the living, to be life, means to be in dependence, always and forever, whether you like it or not. It means whether you like it or not, you are the beneficiary of a largesse so large and so deep, you will never in one lifetime get to the bottom of it. Like it or not, you will never pay it back or settle it up, even if you devote your every waking second to the task. Though it's true, we sometimes really like it not. We hate it and try our doofy damnedest to get out of it. For instance, as we speak, there is a project to genetically modify plants so that they might more efficiently photosynthesize. Because, the New Yorker reports, photosynthesis is an inefficient process. I kid you not. You couldn't make it up. They're going to make photosynthesis better. As I recall, the article didn't interview the plants or the sun or any of the intermediaries who have been for a little while involved and might have a reasonable thing or two to say on the subject. Footnote. As usual, they pretend to be doing it out of the goodness of their pure hearts, lying that the Africans and Yemenis and Indians and Haitians are or will be starving to death because of the really inefficient plants and stuff, which will become even more inefficient as it gets hotter. The lie suggests the seeds, not to mention the people, not to mention the land, are hapless and failures and need help from the same wealthy people who are making it hotter. If there's an innovation to be noted, it's how these people, these first-rate looters, will make a market out of anyone. It used to be a little more obvious. They'd take you in chains across the sea, or kick you off your land, or cut off your hands if you didn't work fast enough. Now they pretend the earth they're destroying and doing everything in their power to keep destroying is broken, inefficient, and that they have the technology to fix it, which they will sell to the ones for whom the earth has been most destroyed. And just a crazy guess here, it won't fix it. In fact, another crazy guess, it will make everything worse. Oh, here's another one of their noteworthy innovations that aren't supposed to work, leaving open the doors for more unworking technologies to fix their unworking technologies, to fix their unworking technologies, all of it making wealthy people wealthier while obscuring their real business, the systematic plunder of the world. End of footnote. And though I'm sure some of the parties involved are decent people, I can't help but think, you stupid motherfuckers. Let me just do one more paragraph so we can end on like a nice feeling. Under the cover of progress, the guise even of care, we would sometimes do anything. Blast reflective particles into the atmosphere to cool the earth, build a better bee, genetically modified seed rather than preserving all the seed we've been given, put duct tape on photo-goddamn synthesis, to refuse the perfect generosity of the earth, to refuse independence. Independence. It sometimes seems to me we will do anything not to have to say, but by your kindness. But as is becoming more evident by the day, when we refuse to celebrate the earth's kindness, we prepare the ground for the earth to refuse kindness to us. But instead, by celebrating that kindness, which we do in part by sharing what that kindness has given us, and by all the practices of sharing we can dream up in celebration of what that kindness has given us, what we common beneficiaries of that kindness has been given, which is, isn't it, everything? I'll pause there.
So I want to make sure we get a couple of questions in here. We have another incredible panel coming up at 4. So unfortunately, we can't go as long as I'm sure we would all want to. I think we have a mic out there. All right. Okay. And I see a question over here in the second row.
And there too. Yeah.
If we use the mics, we can make sure the people in the simulcast can hear us too.
Thank you so much for this enlightening speech. I'm a psychotherapist, and I'd like to know what do you say we can do to help people experience more of the foundational joy and not be so dependent on the circumstantial delights, but use that to encourage and develop the deeper joy. And if you can give an example for us.
I don't know, but I can just say that my experience, like the thing that I sort of am noticing, I think, is that my experience is that the more I'm actively sort of acknowledging my connectedness and acknowledging that, like, you know, what is making my life possible, for instance, or acknowledging like how we are connected, or how if I eat a meal, you know, people grew it, you know, et cetera. The sun, there was photosynthesis involved, and most likely for me, for everyone, all the time.
It goes to what you said about the gratitude, being connected.
Yeah, I mean, I think gratitude is so much a kind of practice of acknowledging that it could be otherwise. You know, it's a practice of paying attention. You know, so that's why, you know, like there's a certain kind of like dorky keychain gratitude. Go get it. You know, that is a little bit like, you know, I don't want to talk shit. Yes, I do. That's kind of like be grateful. You know, like. You know, it's like for your car, for your big car, you know, like grateful for your big car, you know, and whatever. I'm not talking about that at all, you know. What I'm talking about is like being, you know, that there are people who have made your life possible. And there are people at this moment. There are millions, zillions, it's incomprehensible how many things just residing in our guts, for instance, making our lives possible. If it changes, it's like, boom, we're gone. And that feels like a practice of sort of attempting to, for me, recognize that. Not to mention then, like, just like trying to be aware of the connectedness, you know, in my community or in my neighborhood, or, you know, like just those sorts of things. A lot of times I say, and I don't know that this is exactly right, like go, like when people, I'm just like, I like to go into town. That makes me feel good, to go to town, you know. And by that, I think I mean I like to go witness my connection. I like to go say hi. But, you know, going to the woods is like going to town, too, if you realize that the trees are also looking after you, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you, yeah.
We've got about 5 minutes.
Hey.
You mentioned earlier your buddy who you remember out of discussions.
Yeah.
Called him beloved. I've got an old friend who I call my wife. She's looking for words for it.
Yeah.
What are words for?
Yeah.
Two words. I wonder when you thought about words for love, words for kinds of love.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know how to talk about how much love that teaches.
Mm.
And it feels like something I'd like them to know.
Mm. Yeah, it's a beautiful question. That's more beautiful than I can kind of like do here. Yeah. But yeah, there's a word for that. There's probably like 1,000 words for that, you know, but maybe you got to make it up, you know? Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you because I don't always realize how short I am. It's like, do you want me to raise my hand for you?
Do you all know each other? Delight. Hi.
I appreciate you so much, and I just learned about you maybe a week or a week and a half ago when I listened to your interview on It's Been a Minute with Brittany Luce, and I saved it, and I've been telling everyone about it, and when I was just looking at what to do this weekend, and when I saw your name,
Cool. Wow.
I'm really grateful that we made it off the wait list, and of the many things I appreciated what you've shared in all these different forums is that, as Erin, you said, you bring us along in your thinking, and I'm the same way. Whenever I answer a question, I'm always like, here's the context of why I'm asking this, and then let me arrive at the point. All this to say is, I'm a kindergarten teacher.
Sweet.
I
write about joy in a time like this. I felt it very deeply about it's always a time like this.
Yeah, yeah.
And, that's why we need to write about joy and
Yeah.
contemplate joy. What I hear from a lot of what you're saying is about openness and compassion and vulnerability and connectedness. But I also think, as people of color and people of marginalized identities, there are also things to detangle from, and things to set boundaries around as well. In addition to the things to be open to and are soft to, I think there's also room to say no. And I'm curious about that for you because I think something you were saying about knowing we are dependent on one another and entangled from it with one another, but sometimes a lot of these problems come from being entangled with the wrong things, right? Being entangled with profit, or being entangled with power, or the badges that you're talking about. So I know this, I don't need to be a downer, but I also know you'll understand that I can stand in hand.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you balance that openness and softness with also saying no?
Yeah, great question. That's a great thing. Me and my buddy Pat were just talking the other day about like maybe the difference between connection. Connection feels so nice because you can be like, if you want to stop being connected, you're like, okay, that's over. But entanglement maybe suggests it will never be over. Even if you like say no, in some way you do not escape your entanglement. I mean, we just know this. We're just fundamentally entangled, And so, I mean, I don't know quite how to answer your question. I mean, I don't know how to answer your question, but I do feel, I mean, it feels like just a really relevant, like sort of difficult thing to contend with. And also like a thing to balance, to hold both at the same time, because one of the things is that like our refusal to acknowledge our entanglement is a brutality. And then the attempt to disentangle can be a brutality because you can't be disentangled. I think, I'm thinking this. You can't be disentangled. So what we do in order to pretend that we can be disentangled can be horrible. And so it's just a conundrum, it's a conundrum. And maybe the loveliness of it, the difficult love of it is that there's no way out. You can't get out of it. Like we can't get out of that. We're not gonna. As far as like a sort of like, when you're talking about like say capitalism or something like that, like, we're in the midst of, we're in all of these systems, we're implicated. It feels really important to me, to one thing, because one of our attempts to disentangle is sometimes to disentangle ourselves from violence that that is being committed in our names, which itself is like, I think rather than us being able to sort of wonder about the violence, it makes us like not even want to look at it, which feels to me also another kind of attempt toward disentanglement that is a brutality that prevents us from being like, oh, wait a second. Oh, you're doing that in my name? Okay, my lights are coming on because of this? Okay. So maybe I should recognize that I'm involved in this in some way, and then maybe we can have like an honest conversation, and do something else. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's a great question. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. I think there's a sign up back there.
Yeah,
What's that sign say?
yeah. Unfortunately, it is time for us to end this amazing panel, but we will be, yes.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Ross will be signing copies of his books downstairs in the Carver Rec Center. If you'll give us just a second to navigate down there, we will meet you there. Thank you so much.